What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. Had a pretty interesting 5-gamer last night, big old GPPs. I'm not a huge fan of massive GPPs on a 5-game slate, but it wasn't the worst slate. I would say there's definitely been worse this year. Who'd you really need? Like, there wasn't like a player that really broke anything.
Yeah, there wasn't like a hat trick 4-point game or anything like that last night. Frank Toronto did have 2 goals and an assist.
Yeah, he was the highest scorer playing on the slate.
Yeah, the Utah power play did quite a bit. Like Sergachev had a goal, Clayton Keller had a goal and assist. I think Cooley had 2 assists. Genther had a goal, I believe, a goal and an assist. So like Utah, Anaheim were pretty good last night. That's about it, especially with like considering, Detroit put up 6 goals, but like 2 assists from Dylan Larkin, goal and assist from Lucas Raymond, goal and assist from JT Compher. Florida put up 6 goals, but it was basically like the third line was the best line. So like it really wasn't, there wasn't one single player that you needed, which is, so there were more than one path to victory. But yeah, look, I would wager, because I looked at the contest I was in, like it was a lot of Utah at the top, which makes sense.
Yeah, I fell asleep before the late games, but I used to stay up and, do every slate until the games are over. So my body woke me up with a minute left in overtime in Arizona, and I had Sergachev. He scored the overtime goal, which put me into the money. But I didn't realize that DK credited Genther's goal to Schmaltz, who I also had. So that game went final. I was like, oh, I'm going to cash everything, including the 888. So I had like $2,100 in winnings. Fell back asleep, woke up to $8. And then I realized, I saw in our chat that they said that they switched, Schmaltz's goal to Genther. So that was killer. BB-Mon in our Discord finished second in that 888 for $50K. It's a nice little evening at the office. I will say so myself. Hopefully you are Canadian, so you don't get taxed 926% on it. But congrats to you. You also got a little bone by that error by DK I saw in the chat, and he just kind of brushed it off. How rich. 150K stat correction. He's just like, but congrats to you. Let's get back at it tonight. What's going on, Cliffy?
Yeah, no, not a whole lot. Interesting slate here tonight. It looks like there are 2 smash spots. One with a very expensive top line, one with 2 pretty playable top lines, much less expensive. So gonna have to navigate that. And other than that, like there are a bunch of, I would say, close games here tonight, or at least close enough games. There might be a couple blowouts, but like there are genuinely like 3 or 4 spots with a heavily favored team with a big total. So, if you're a single entry player like us, it's going to be one of those white knuckle nights, which they, a lot of them are anyway. But it's an interesting slate. I don't think, because there are so many heavy favorites with big totals, I don't think there's any like one spot that it's like, oh, you really have to watch out for this. So kind of like it in that way.
Yeah, my favorite poker adage applies to single entry DFS: hours of boredom, moments of sheer terror. Just how
that's exactly how DFS goes when you're single entry.
Yeah. So let's get into this slate. Before we do, I'm sure you're tired of me saying it, but we do really appreciate all your support, whether it's the affiliate signups, just being here, liking the videos, commenting how good our beards look, which is true. I saw Alex Baker say, I'm the last of the jocks. Everyone's too nerdy in DFS now. I was like, have you seen our beards? There's nothing nerdy about these beards, okay, Mr. Baker? But anyway, thank you guys so much for the support. And if you do want to go premium, you can click the links in the chat. Use promo code Stochastic15. That will give you 15% off your first week or month of any subscription. NFL's ramping down. NBA is back to their regular stuff, which is nice. MMA restarts in a couple weeks. So, yeah, there are options. I think golf even starts soon. I don't know. Let's get into the slate. St. Louis Blues with a 2.5 total. Heading into Tampa, the Lightning have a 3.5. Cirelli wasn't at practice, but they said it is just maintenance. I don't know. Like, that's what the beat writer said. Sometimes there's always one team who says that, and then they end up on IR. But I kind of believe that Cirelli's just maintenance. It's Gensel, Point, Kucherov, Hagel, Cirelli, and Connor Geeky. Blues going Thomas, Buchnevich, Neighbors, Kyrou, Shen, Torpachenko. If Cirelli's in, which I am expecting, that line will go out against the Buchnevich, Thomas, Neighbors line. Like, besides Vancouver, St. Louis has the lowest road total here. I don't really want to be playing the Blues here, especially with the Hagel-Cirelli line going out against Buchnevich. They've been very good all season at both ends of the ice. Probably out on the Brews. I think, if anything, it would be like a Kyrou one-off, a Shen Kyrou two-man as a filler in MME. Like, I'm not prioritizing the Blues in single entry. The Tampa side's a little more interesting. The problem is their top line's 25,500, which is just insane considering that the Avs are on this slate in San Jose and their top line is cheaper. The Tampa top line does have a 28.3% top two stack, 6.9% projected ownership. So they do have heavy positive leverage here because most of the ownership is going to Colorado. So what I would say is in MME, I think they're a very solid pivot off the Colorado chalk. Again, like, the issue that I have is I don't think they're worthy of that price to the point where I'm willing to spend more than half my salary on them. I think a Kucherov one-off is certainly in play. It's the Gensel problem again. You know what I mean? Like, he's just so expensive. He really needs 2 goals or a points bonus or a shots bonus with a couple points to really make that line go. I don't think I'll get there in single entry. I just like Colorado much better. And, you know, if I'm going to spend up in single entry, it's going to be for Colorado. I do think in MME, the more lineups you make, I think it's an interesting conversation you should have with your optimizer because, you know, they listen. And you just, you know, I think I would get over the field on Tampa because it's really not that hard to get over 6.9% on a 25,000 line. I think it's an interesting MME play. In single entry, it's just too expensive.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I mean, it's the same spot that Toronto was in last night, right? That Toronto top line, I think it was 25,800. This is just, it's only a few $100s cheaper. And like Toronto's top line for like almost any line had a decent night last night, right? Nylander had 2 goals. I think Marner, Matthews each had an assist. Obviously, there were some shots between them. Like, there was good production there, but just because they were so expensive, like I didn't see them near the top of any of the leaderboards I was in. Like, that's kind of the problem here is like you probably need 4 goals from this line. That's kind of the issue, right? Maybe if you get 3 perfectly correlated goals, you can get there between them, but you probably need 4. It's just a lot to ask, especially where like St. Louis, they're not a good team per se, but they're not a god awful team, right? Like, they're not, especially since they hired Jim Montgomery. Like, by expected goals against, over their last 10 games. They're basically in the middle of the league, like Calgary, Vegas, like Nashville, like that type of spot at 5-on-5. And, this isn't San Jose. This isn't Anaheim. This isn't even like, Montreal. This is not a good defensive team, but certainly not a bad one. St. Louis also doesn't take very many penalties. They're at 2.4 times shorthanded per game over the last 31 days. They've typically, basically all season, not taken a lot of penalties. League average over that span is 2.8, so they're a lot lower than that. So, Tampa might only get a couple power plays here tonight. Now, St. Louis penalty kill isn't very good, so Tampa can easily go 1 for 2 or even 2 for 2 or something like that. But it's just the price is just way, way too expensive, I think, for a single entry. When you have, we'll get to New Jersey later. New Jersey has a much bigger total. Edmonton's also on the board. They're at home. You mentioned Colorado in the late game. So, there's just a lot here tonight that's all cheaper, all with similar upside. It's just Tampa Bay is not a priority for me. So, I guess Tampa 2. I don't know. I'm just. The thing is I have a problem playing Tampa if I'm not playing the top line, right? It's what's the likelihood that it's just the second line completely goes off and the top line doesn't do anything? I'm fine with. Yeah. I'm fine with Tampa 2. No issue playing them. I don't think I'm going to be in on Tampa here tonight. The St. Louis side, I'll mention St. Louis switched their lines around a bit in their last game. It was that 4-1 loss to New Jersey. We're not sure what the lines are going to be because they haven't done they haven't had a practice yet. The lines that we have are projected by the team. And the last time that they did that, they had Jordan Kyrou on the top line, and Jordan Kyrou was not on the top line. He was on the second line. So just watch that and warm up. The St. Louis top line is kind of interesting. They've been legitimately good this year. That Neighbors Thomas Buchnevich line, 3.2 expected goals, 5.9 actual goals per 60 at 5-on-5. They're all on the top power play unit. Now, Tampa Bay doesn't take a lot of penalties either, but St. Louis top line's basically priced as a filler line, 13,800. I honestly don't mind St. Louis 1 here. I also wonder if they give Vasilevsky another game off before the holiday break. I don't think so, but maybe they will. I don't mind St. Louis 1 here. I honestly think, considering that they're nearly half the price of Tampa 1, I kind of like the Blues top line here. That's probably it for me from this game. Is just St. Louis 1. I'm not going to say don't play Tampa. They're obviously a really good top line. It's just when you're talking about over half your salary, it's just too much for me.
Yeah, and I like Tampa too, like you do. But the problem is to play a Hagel Cirelli 2-man, that's 12,500. It's not like you're getting a massive discount off these top guys, and you're not getting Cirelli on the top power play. So Hagel's 7,300, and he deserves that price a lot more than Gensel deserves his, but he's not on the top lines. So if it was Hagel point Kucherov, that's a different conversation, I think. But we don't have time for that. I'm just projecting. I'm mad. New Jersey Devils with a 3.8 total. Heading into Columbus, our Blue Jackets have a 2.7 total. The absolute disrespect from Vegas for our Blue Jackets. That being said, it's not really disrespect. Devils going Hughes, Bratt, Palat, Heischer, Meyer, Mercer, Nason, Halla, Cotter. Columbus going Monahan, Marchenko, Voronkov, Johnson, Fantilli, Van Riemsdyk. I'm out on that Columbus second line. That's just I don't know, man. Fantilli and Johnson are okay, but you throw Van Riemsdyk into that mix, and it's just a lot of crap. The Columbus top line is really interesting to me from the standpoint that they're 15,400, coming in under 5% owned. That 3-man has a sample up to 120 minutes, and they're still just great. 3.72 expected goals per 60, 5.5 actual. The issue is this is a really, really tough matchup. like I don't think I'm going to prioritize Columbus one in single entry, but like how often can you get a fully correlated line at 15,000 with those kind of expected numbers? Like those expected goals numbers were better than the Toronto top line yesterday, which was like 25,000. Like obviously it's that those Toronto players are much better, but like the numbers are really, really good for this line. It's just a really, really tough matchup. If this was a 5-game slate like yesterday, I'd have a lot more interest, but a 9-game slate at that price point, I think I would reserve it for MME. You could make a case for like a one-off Marchenko, one-off Voronkov. You could even do it in single entry. Like I wouldn't hate it in a mid-range build. The way I'm building tonight, I think I'm probably spending up, but I haven't decided yet. The Devils side, this is a really, really good power play matchup. I prefer the Hughes, Bratt, Palat line. I think what I would do is leave off Palat and add in Nason here. If you want to spend even more money, I would add in Nico Hischier there, go double center. I think double center gets you on a unique path anyway, even though there's technically three center spots. Like people just don't like plugging two centers from the same team for whatever reason. I'm fine with some sort of power play stack. If you need to save the money, I guess you could just full stack that Hughes line. They've been better. That Mercer line with Hischier and Meyer, they're up. Their sample's getting larger. And it's just average. Like, I don't know what else to call it. It's just average. And they're coming in with more ownership than the Hughes line because of their price. But you're only getting Nico Hischier on the top power play unit. This is a great power play spot. I want as much power play players in my lineup as I can if I am going the route of the Devils.
Yeah. So one thing I will say, the Devils do have that Kovacevic, Siegenthaler pairing. It's been just great defensively this season. When the Devils are on the road, I just saw an article about it and I was looking at the numbers and it's true. Like the Siegenthaler Kovacevic pairing tends to go out more often with the Hischier line to make it more of a complete shutdown unit. And I suspect Monahan's line is going to go out against Jack Hughes here tonight because they do use Monahan quite a bit in that shutdown role. So like, Hughes, with the Siegenthaler Kovacevic pairing, the defensive numbers are elite, right? Without that pairing, like the expected goals against goes up like 80%. It's still pretty good because the Devils are a good defensive team overall. But I do think that there is merit to playing Columbus one here tonight. Like you said, they not only do they have a very high expected goals for rate, they have a very high actual goals for rate. They're perfectly correlated on the power play. New Jersey's penalty kill has generally been pretty good. But this Columbus top power play unit has also been good. It's been one of the few bright spots on this team besides the top line. So I do have a little bit of interest in Columbus here tonight because under 5% ownership for a perfectly correlated line at home at 15,400 appeals to me. Now, obviously, if you're playing Colorado, Edmonton, Tampa Bay, those types of teams, like you're not even going to bother considering them. But if you're not stacking one of those top teams, I do think you have to give Columbus top line some consideration. Like the New Jersey goaltending has been okay, but not elite or great or anything this year. They've certainly had some very bad games. So I don't mind Columbus one here. They're the only line that I really have interest in on that side. On the New Jersey side, like I do think it is a bit of a worse matchup for the Hughes line going up against Monahan, but at the same time, the Hughes line is just much, much better than the Hischier line. Like again, with Dawson Mercer there, they're just not scoring. They're at 2.8 expected goals. The Hischier line is 2.8 expected goals, 2.2 actual goals, whereas the Hughes line is at 3.4 expected goals, 3.7 actual goals scored per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. It's like 60% higher than the Hischier line. Like it's not even close. So considering how porous Columbus is defensively, how bad the goaltending is, like Elvis Merzlikins, there's a good argument he's the worst goalie in the NHL. And I don't say that lightly because I know Dan Vladar is also on this slate, but there is an argument that that Elvis Merzlikins is the worst goalie in the NHL. Like he's pretty reliable to give up pretty much 4 goals a game. So my favorite line in this game is the Hughes line. Now, they are a lot more expensive, coming with a little bit more ownership. Top 2 stack percentage is over twice as high as the Columbus line, though. So I do like the Hughes line the best. I also do have some interest in that Columbus top line. Like if I was playing 20 max tonight, I would probably have some of both in my lineups.
There's a reason they called up Jet Greaves from the AHL, and his AHL numbers weren't even that great. Just like they don't have goaltending. So
no.
LA Kings with a 3 total heading into Philadelphia. The Flyers have a 2.5 total. Tortorella completely blew up his lines last night in their 6-4 loss to the Wangs. No idea what they're going to do. I don't think it matters to me because I am out on the Flyers. This is it is the worst matchup possible. It would only be worse if it was in LA. I don't think it really matters too much anyway. One off Konechny, one off Michkov, one off Tippett if you want. I don't know where they're going to be or what the lines are going to look like, but Konechny is their best player, so one offs are fine. Kingside, a lot more interesting. Urson went last night, so it's probably going to be Kolosov or Fedotov, one of the Ovs, and they're not good. They are also back-to-back. I prefer Kempe Kopitar Turcotte at 15,800, 4.5% top 2 stack, 4.2% ownership. In case you haven't really understood who Turcotte is, right? The year Hughes went 1 and Capo Caco went 2, Turcotte went 5. And he's one of the remaining top 10 picks still on the team after Caco got traded last year. Obviously Hughes, but he is a legitimate prospect. That line, Kempe and Kopitar, are so much better with Turcotte than they are with anyone else. It doesn't really matter what's coming back at them unless Torts goes Cates. I don't know. They can make a good defensive line that is in a shutdown role. However, the goalies suck. So I do have interest in Kempe Kopitar Turcotte at 15.8. I think you can go right back to Fiala, Ferrier, Deneau as well at their 13.4K price point. They're more of a filler-ish type deal. That's why they're coming in with 8% projected ownership compared to the top line of 4. Salary agnostic, I'm going Kempe Kopitar Turcotte if I need the savings. I have no issue going Deneau, Fiala, Ferrier. Fogle, Byfield, Jeannot at 9,200 at 6.5% projected ownership. I guess a piece or two if you're power play stacking something, but I prefer the other 2 lines.
Yeah, easy on the Flyers. I'm out on them. Kings are top 2, at worst, top 3 defensive team in the league, and the penalty kill's gotten a lot better. They're taking fewer penalties, all that stuff. So out on the Flyers. For the Kings, I have no problem playing Kempe Kopitar Turcotte. You're right. They have been good. 2.9 expected goals per 60 minutes. 5.6 actual goals. They are riding hot by shooting percentage. Thing is, if they are shooting just 10%, which would be fairly normal, they'd still be well over 3 goals per 60. They're just a really good line. So yeah, no problem playing Kings 1. I think I have more interest in Fiala, Laferriere, Deneau. Just one, because they are a filler. I do think I'm going to end up with one of the more expensive lines in my lineup, like New Jersey, Edmonton, Colorado, something like that. So I am going to be looking for fairly cheap lines. Now, Laferriere, Deneau, Fiala is not super cheap, but 13,400 is just fine. They've been really, really good as well. 3.6 expected goals, 3.2 actual goals per 60. Kevin Fiala has been skating 21 minutes a game on average over the last couple weeks. Even Deneau has been up around the 19-minute mark. They've been going 11-7 a fair bit, and they're giving a lot more ice time to basically all their top 3 lines, the top 2 especially. And here's the thing: is Kevin Fiala plays both power play units, and Deneau and Laferriere are on the second power play unit. So even though Fiala's on power play 1. He's also on power play 2. So they're technically a perfectly correlated line. So this is a perfectly correlated line on the power play that's been excellent at 5-on-5, that is getting a lot of ice time, that is at 13,400, getting secondary matchups against bad goaltending. It's one of those things, like there aren't many more boxes they can check here for me tonight. So I really do like Kings 2. They're one of my favorite filler lines on the board. No issue with going to Kings 1. They've been really good too. It's just, I think, just thinking out loud of the way that I'm going to be building my lineup.
I am one of the biggest Kempe slappies that there are, so I'm a little bit biased. But yeah, I mean, Fiala playing both ends of the power play unit is a big deal. So he's like Willie Nylander with a discount. They both don't play defense. Suck on that, Leafs. Pittsburgh Penguins with a 2.7 total. Heading into Nashville, the Predators have a 3.3. If there was a game I wish that wasn't on the slate, it'd probably be this one. Like chalk Nashville again. 16.9% Forsberg, Marchessault, Stamkos. No Yossi again, even though he practiced on power play 1. Like, I know they'll probably see a fair bit of Crosby, Rust, Raquel, and that's a really, really good 5-on-5 matchup. 17% ownership at 18,700 just feels real bad for this line. If it was like Ryan O'Reilly centering the line or like Tommy Novak centering the line, I would have more interest. I just like Steven Stamkos just isn't a center in this league anymore. His 5-on-5 play has been steadily declining for over 2 seasons now. They're awful defensively. The Crosby line is very, very good offensively. Yeah, they give up chances the other way, but if you're gonna give Crosby a very good matchup against a bad defensive line, like he's gonna control the play with Stamkos as your center. So like I have more interest in Pittsburgh 1 here than I do Nashville 1. If you want to play Nashville, go ahead. Like I've been off that bandwagon since this line got put together. I'm not hopping back on. That's not something I'm going to do. If you want to play Nashville 1, go ahead. You won't see them in my lineup. I prefer Pittsburgh 1. They're coming in at 2.3% projected ownership. Yes, that line isn't great defensively, but they are very, very good offensively. And like I just said, that Stamkos, Marchessault, Forsberg line is awful defensively. So give me Pittsburgh 1. You want to go to Pittsburgh 2 as a filler. That's fine. Like I like Bunting as a one-off just because he shoots the puck a bunch. He is on the second power play unit. You need 2 of the guys. You can go Bunting, Tomasino for really, really cheap. I also don't mind the Nashville third line. I've been on them for a while. Jankowski, Novak, Evangelista. I don't really play Jankowski, but I have used Novak, Evangelista as a 2-man. They are almost min price. They are coming in around 5% projected, but they've been playing 15, 16, 17 minutes. So I don't mind Nashville 3. I think it's my favorite line in Nashville, but Pittsburgh 1 is my favorite line in this game.
So at the risk of recency bias, the Penguins have been decent for a few weeks now defensively. Like they lost 6-1 against Utah on November 23rd, and then they had like 4 days off, right? In the 10 games since, and they've played some good teams in those 10 games. Vancouver, Boston, Calgary, Florida, the Rangers, they're not good. Toronto, Colorado, Montreal, obviously not good, but Ottawa, Los Angeles. Like in that group, there's 8 playoff teams currently by the standings. In those last 10 games, the Penguins are 11th by expected goals against in the league at 5-on-5. By overall save percentage, they're also 11th in the league. Like they've had a pretty tough stretch of games here, and they've actually been pretty good defensively, and the goaltending has gotten better. I worry that I'm going to be putting too much into it, but if they're not an absolute basement defensive team like they were in the first month of the season, if they're even close to average, then I would honestly have absolutely no interest in Nashville here tonight. 20% ownership or whatever it's going to end up being. So, like I'm not playing Super Chalk Nashville. Like I'm just not doing it. Like you want to talk about teams getting better. Nashville in that same stretch of games I just talked about with the Penguins, still dead last in the league by scoring. Dead last, but a distant dead last. Like this isn't a team that's been riding the ship or anything. They're fucking awful. I'm not playing a Super Chalk team that has been the worst scoring team in the league, not only over the last 3 weeks, but all season. Like, I hate to say it, but I feel like I'm just going off on this for no reason, and I'm going to get burned by a Philip Forsberg hat trick tonight or something like that. Like, I can definitely see that in my future. But playing a Super Chalk line that is the lowest scoring team in the league, and it's not like they're Super Chalk at like 12K. This is an $18,700 line. I'd way rather just go play New Jersey, honestly. So I am out on Nashville. I'm not even super excited about playing Pittsburgh. Like, if anything, it would be the Pittsburgh top line. Not concerned about any of the matchups Nashville has coming back the other way. The Pittsburgh top line, they're starting to struggle to score. They're only at 2.4 goals per 60 at 5-on-5, and they're also split up on the power play, so they're not perfectly correlated. They're only shooting 8%. You got to think that gets better, but Pittsburgh's been a pretty low-scoring team at 5-on-5 and on the power play over the last couple of years. Like, this team's just getting old. So, honestly, of any line in this game, it's Pittsburgh one I have interest in. I don't have any interest in any. Honestly, and I seriously mean this, I think Nashville 3 is my favorite line on the Nashville side. Evangelista, Novak, Jankowski, like, at least they've been good. 4.3 expected goals in their limited time together. If you're playing Tampa Bay or Colorado or something like that, I can see going to Nashville 3, but I am not playing a 20% Nashville top line as the lowest scoring team in the league at 18,700. It feels insane.
Yeah, and Yossi's still out, and they traded Carrier. So, like, their pairings are Gravel Willsby, Brady Shea, Nick Blankenberg, Luke Shen, and Mark DeGuizo. Who?
It's four AHLers, Brady Shea and Luke Shen.
Yeah, and Luke Shen couldn't move a boat in the ocean. Like, Brady Shea's their only puck mover. The funny thing about the Nashville top line, and this is the last thing I will it might be Barron tonight. Yeah, Barron's a decent puck mover, but he's not ready. He needs some emerald seasoning. I don't have Willsby hate, but like, he should not be a top pair defenseman on an NHL team. The last point I'll make about the Nashville top line, then we'll move on. In 60 minutes, 4.15 expected goals against per 60. They haven't given up a actual goal yet. It's just like Saros is just absolutely bailing them out. Let's talk about the Fighting Capo Cacos. Seattle Kraken with a 2.9 total heading into Chicago. The Blackhawks have a 2.6. Capo Caco is playing tonight. I went to see if they ran some lines. I didn't see anything. We were talking about this a little bit yesterday, that you think that he's going to slide up with Schwartz and Beniers and go as a shutdown line. That would make some sense. Sliding him in with Stevenson and McCann kind of makes some sense too. I don't know where he'll end up. Again, I don't have a ton of interest in Seattle here, despite it being a pretty good matchup. I would just go right back to Wright, Bjorkstrand, Tolvanen, assuming they're together at 9,200. Like, it's the same memo we say every time Seattle's playing. Bjorkstrand's on the top power play unit. That power play unit has been good. He's only 3,400. Shane Wright has a good sample with these guys. That would be the line I'd go to. Like, Capo Caco at this stage of his career, and maybe he develops in Seattle because the Rangers absolutely demolished his, development. But at this point in his career, he's a defensive first forward, so it does make some sense that he would go with Beniers and Schwartz. I don't really have a ton of interest in that line. It would just be Seattle 3. I don't mind the Bedard line. I don't mind the Nazar line as a filler, but like I don't want to be really playing Seattle or Chicago on the slate, but there are some filler lines that you can use.
Yeah, on the Seattle side for me, like they might have both Kako and Gord back in the lineup tonight, and that could really change things too. Like Kako might end up on the fourth line, just like they get him acclimated to the team, right? Because he just showed up today. So like, who knows? For me, it is still Bjorkstrand, Tolvanen, and Wright that I have interest in. 2.9 expected goals per 60 minutes and 130 minutes together. No other Seattle lines above 2.5. Like they are the best offensive line that they have, at least until Jordan Eberle gets back. So it is Seattle 3. They do fit with your Tampa Bays, your Colorados, and stuff like that. So there might be a fair bit of ownership. I don't think you have to full stack them. I'm fine with like a 2-man of like Wright, Bjorkstrand, or something like that. Bjorkstrand would be the guy that I would keep, but like Wright, Bjorkstrand, Tolvanen, Bjorkstrand, something like that. Seattle 3 for me on that side. Like they're going to miss any shutdown matchups from Chicago. And then once you get into that depth, there's just not a whole lot there. On the Chicago side, like I don't dislike the Bedard, Donato, Foligno line. Like Bedard and Donato have actually been decent, like above average offensively. 2.5 expected goals, 2.8 actual goals per 60. Donato got moved to the top power play unit, so 2 out of the 3 guys are on the top power play. But they're 14,800. Earlier we talked about the Columbus top line. Columbus top line is 15,400. They're only like $600 more expensive. I'd rather play Columbus. Talked about the St. Louis top line earlier. The St. Louis top line is cheaper. I would probably rather play St. Louis here tonight. That Kings second line we talked about is even cheaper than that. I would rather play them. Like if I'm looking for a line in that 14-ish K range, I do think there are just two or three other lines that I would rather play here tonight. So I don't have a ton of interest in the Chicago side. There are cheap one-offs. If you need a cheap one-off like Nazar, I think you can use him as a cheap one-off. He's only 2,800 getting power play time. Like that's fine. You want a one-off Bedard, 6,800. It's not that bad. I think that's okay too. But full stacking, like there are just other stacks in that price range I'd rather target. So basically, for me, the only thing I really like in this game is Seattle 3.
Yeah, I agree. Awful Kako trade for the Rangers. If you're a Rangers fan, though, you shouldn't be surprised they tried to trade him in the offseason last year. It is what it is. There's more moves coming. Ottawa Senators with a 2.9 total heading into Calgary. The Pilot Lights have a 2.6 total. Ottawa running back Kachuk, Batherson, Norris, Stützle, Giroux, Gaudette, Pinto, Cousins. It's a me, Amadio. Calgary status quo. I don't mind Ottawa one here, just from the pure fact that it's Dan Vladar in net, and he has save percentage under 9. His high danger save percentage is like 750, and Brady Tkachuk lives around the net. That would be the reason to play Ottawa 1. They're fully correlated as well. 19,800, 8.9% top 2 stack, 3.2% projected ownership. At that price, I'd much rather play Ottawa here than either of Nashville or Pittsburgh. Playoff spot, Ottawa Senators, by the way. I don't mind them. I'm not going to prioritize them in single entry at that price, but because they're going to see a fair bit of that Backlund Coleman line, and by a fair bit, they're probably going to see them a lot. And that line has been very, very good. But again, it is Dan Vladar in net.
Can I cut you off just one quick second?
Sure.
I just saw a tweet from one of the Seattle blogs. Seattle GM Ron Francis mentions that Kako will get an opportunity to play in the top 6 right away. So I assume he goes to the Beniers Schwartz line, and then Tanev goes down to the 4th line.
Makes some sense. That is probably where he goes. Ottawa 2 for me. I don't have a ton of interest even at 13-1. They just haven't been vibing together. Honestly, like if I'm not going to use Ottawa 1, it would be Ottawa 3. Pinto, Cousins, Amadio. You don't need all three of them. Like a Pinto, Amadio, 2-man here on the second power play unit. They actually have pretty good 5-on-5 numbers. They're only 8,100. I throw them in the basket with Seattle 3, with Nashville 3 as lines that fit with Tampa 1 and Colorado 1. I'm not going to like go out of my way to play Pinto, Amadio, without Colorado or Tampa, but they're a line that you can throw into the mix there. On the Calgary side, again, it would be the Kadri line, 12,100. It's a filler line. They are coming in around 10% projected, which kind of sucks. But again, a top line at that price is going to be negatively leveraged. So it would be the Kadri line. Like, I guess the Backlund Coleman line is fine, but that Brady Tkachuk, Patterson, Norris line has been actually good defensively. So I think it would be the Kadri line.
Yeah, I'm out on Ottawa too, the Stützle line. Like, they're not a bad line, like for real hockey, but for DFS, they're just not very good. Like, Claude Giroux has not been shooting basically all season. And his last 10 games, he has 11 shots on goal. Tim Stützle is not a big shooter. Adam Gaudette, he's got goals this year. He's also still shooting like 30% or whatever it is. Also, over Ottawa's last 10 games, the Pinto, Cousins, Amadio line are 4th, 5th, and 6th amongst their forwards in even strength ice time per game. They are basically the second line now. So I agree with you. And you're right. They have been good. 3.0 expected goals per 60 per hockey viz for that Ottawa third line. It's pretty good. I agree with you. I would throw them in the basket with Seattle and Nashville. I would probably have them second. Like, I think I still prefer Seattle over Ottawa's third line, but ahead of Nashville's. I think in general, if I'm going to play Ottawa here tonight, I would go to the top line. They're still getting, 18 to 20 minutes. Drake Batherson still shooting a bit, not a lot, but he's still at 2 shots per game over his last 10 games. Like, obviously Brady Tkachuk shoots a ton. They are going up against that Backlund Coleman line. That worries me a little bit. Backlund and Coleman have been pretty good defensively this season, 2.3 expected goals against. So, like, they're not my favorite line in that price range. Like, if you don't want to pay all the way up for a Colorado or Tampa Bay, you want a line in like that 19, 21K price range. Like, Edmonton's there. The Jack Hughes line from New Jersey is there. Like, there are a couple others that I think I would rather play. They're in the middle of that upper tier, I would say. I definitely would have Edmonton and I do have Edmonton and New Jersey above them, but I would also have them ahead of like Nashville, Pittsburgh, like those types of teams. So if I was 20 maxing 150, I would be giving them more consideration single entry. I don't think I'm going to get there. On the Calgary side, it probably would be that Kadri, Huberdeau, Pospisil line. They have been pretty good offensively, 3.1 expected goals, 5 actual goals per 60. Kadri has 36 shots in his last 10 games. Huberdeau still has a pretty high shooting percentage, but he's been producing well. Huberdeau obviously on the top power play unit. I think they're fine as a filler. They are coming in with a lot of ownership, about 10%. That, per top stacks, that's a lot, but I think they're fine as a filler. They're the line I would rather play. I think Ottawa 3 is also in play. I will say in general, I'm not spending up for expensive forwards in this game.
Yeah, agreed. Boston Bruins with a 3.3 total heading into Edmonton. The Oilers have a 3.4. Boston has been getting better defensively, but let me give you this thought exercise for a second. If Edmonton was playing Boston tonight with Dan Vladar in net, you'd have a lot more interest in Edmonton. Jeremy Swayman's in net, and he's arguably had a worse season than Dan Vladar. Just throwing it out there. Dan Vladar arguably has been better than Jeremy Swayman this season. I just opened up my DMs for Boston Bruins fans to jump back in angrily. Facts don't give a damn about your feelings because it's true. Vladar has a better 5-on-5 save percentage. He has a better high danger save percentage. He has more goals saved above expected than Swayman. Basically, what I'm getting at here is I do like Edmonton 1 here. McDavid, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, 20,500. I've seen a lot of vitriol a little bit about Ryan Nugent Hopkins on that line. He still is on that power play. He hasn't been shooting the puck a bunch since his absolute ham season 2 years ago on the power play. He hasn't really been super productive, but I will say he's only 4,500. There were times a few seasons ago he was low sevens. It's priced into his production. 20,500. I do really like Edmonton 1 here. Yes, it's not the best 5-on-5 matchup, but this McDavid line, it's a McDavid line, and they have a 3.4 total. I do like Colorado better, but I think anytime you can get an Edmonton line under 10% with a 3.4 total, it does raise the people's eyebrow a little bit. So I do like Edmonton 1 here. Edmonton 2, like, they've been good. It's just, I don't know, like, they are priced as a filler at 1.8%. Since Kapanen got there, like, their offensive numbers are good, but their defensive numbers haven't been great. And that Lindholm, Marchand, Coyle line arguably has been the best Bruins line on both ends of the ice. So I would just go to Edmonton 1 here and call it a day. On the Boston side, like, the goalies for Edmonton are pretty bad too. Like, Stuart Skinner's not having a great season. I don't particularly love the Bruins lines here. I think like a Zacha Pasternak 2-man is fine. I think a Lindholm Marchand 2-man is fine. I don't think I'll be prioritizing Boston here.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong, Boston's been playing better defensively. As you mentioned, Jeremy Swayman has certainly struggled basically all season. It is a, quote, tough matchup for Edmonton. I'll also mention that Edmonton went into Vancouver and blew them up for 7 goals, and then Edmonton went into Minnesota and blew them up for 7 goals. And those are probably tougher matchups than this one. Not expecting 7 goals from the Oilers here tonight. What I'm saying is that this team is good enough to just nuke anybody on any given night, regardless of the matchup, regardless of the defense, regardless of who's in net. So it's one of those things like you said, like, anytime I can get a low owned McDavid and, that line, as you mentioned, coming in under 10%, 8.4% on a 9-game slate, anytime I can get a low owned McDavid, almost regardless of matchup, I always have interest. Obviously that top line's been really good, 3.9 goals per 60 minutes. Zach Hyman, 6 games since he came back from injury, 3 shot bonuses in those games. I think it's 7 goals or something like that. He certainly turned his season completely around, which he was expected to, but now it's finally starting to happen. I really do like Edmonton 1, especially where they're over $5,000. They're $5,000 cheaper than Tampa Bay. They're like $3,000 cheaper than Colorado. You can still fit in a 13, 14K decent secondary stack with them. I really do like Edmonton 1 here. They are one of my favorite lines on the board. Edmonton 2 is kind of interesting for this reason. Edmonton doesn't draw a ton of power plays. Boston's been taking a lot less over like the last 6 weeks or whatever. And that Draisaitl, Podkolzin, and Kapanen line has actually been pretty good. 4.4 expected goals, 3.5 actual goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. If the Oilers don't get there on the power play, that line stands a decent chance of doing well, I think. And the Oilers still score goals. I think that line is a decent chance of doing well. And because of how cheap Podkolzin and Kapanen are, you don't need 3 or 4 goals from this line. Like, Draisaitl gets a goal and an assist. The others each get an assist. One gets a goal, one gets an assist, something like that. You're all set. So I don't mind Edmonton 2. Edmonton 1's my favorite line in this game. On the Boston side, it would be the Boston top line. I think I agree with you. I'd rather two-man. Like, I don't have a ton of interest in playing Morgan Geekie or Charlie Coyle or anything like that. It would be two-man of like Pasternak or Zacha. You know, that line is up to 3.5 goals per 60 as well this season. Ice time is sometimes a concern because if the game isn't a blowout, they'll get ice time. But if this is like 3-0 Edmonton or something like that, Pasternak might only play like 16 or 17 minutes. That is a concern. But I don't mind Boston 1 here, but Edmonton 1 is my favorite line in this game.
Yep, agreed. Vancouver Canucks with a 2.4 total heading into Vegas. The Golden Knights have a 3.1 total. Vegas going Eichel, Stone, Dorofeyev, Carlson, Olofsson, Howden, Hurdle, Kolesar, Pearson. Vancouver played yesterday. They could shuffle their lines. They lost in overtime. I don't think they played awful. Looking at the natural stat trick numbers, maybe they run back the same. It doesn't really matter to me. They have a 2.4 road total back-to-back on the road against a team that just doesn't take penalties. Pretty much out on Vancouver. If you happen to get to Besser, Miller, Garland, if they are together in 20 to 150 max a little bit, that's fine. Vegas, like, I don't particularly love these lines. Like, Eichel, Stone, Dorofeyev would be the line I'd go to. 20,100, 12.2% top 2 stack, 5.5% projected ownership. But like for $400 more, I can get a fully correlated Edmonton McDavid line. Like, it is Lankinen. They are back-to-back on the road. I don't mind them, but like their sample isn't great. They're over 20,000 when you have Edmonton, you have Colorado, you have Tampa Bay on the slate. They're fine in MME. I'm not prioritizing them. I don't really like the second and third lines. I mean, like Carlson, Olofsson, two-man, I guess, if you need like a cheap-ish two-man is fine, but I particularly don't love this game.
Yeah, remember we said on yesterday's show that Quinn Hughes and JT Miller play together quite a bit when they're on the road this season. I was just looking earlier. It's like 61 or 62 minutes with Miller and Hughes on the ice when they're on the road at 5-on-5 this season. They haven't been on the ice for a goal against yet. They are pretty good. It is a pretty good defensive line, that Miller Besser line, especially when they have Quinn Hughes on the ice with them. It's kind of a tough matchup for Vegas. The thing is like, yes, it's Lankinen starting, but he's been pretty good this season.
He's one of the better backups in the league.
Yeah, I mean, it might just be a straight timeshare with Demko now at this point. So, yeah, I don't mind Vegas one because I do like Dorofeyev. Eichel and Stone have typically been pretty good over the years, regardless of who the third winger has been. I don't mind them, but if we're looking at those expensive lines, again, I would rather play the Hughes line from New Jersey. I'd rather play Edmonton. I'd certainly rather play Colorado, even though they're way more expensive. But like Edmonton, in that price range, Edmonton and New Jersey are ahead of them for me. Now, I would rather play Vegas than play Ottawa or Pittsburgh or Nashville. So it's not like I don't like Vegas at all. Especially where Eichel and Stone probably going to get heavy minutes, like 20 plus. Dorofeyev not on the power play, but he's a guy that can really do well getting to the net and kind of get open for his shots. And he's only 4,700, so like you don't need a multi-point game from him. You don't need a goal and an assist and 3 shots. Like if he can get a goal and 3 shots, like it's fine. You know what I mean? So don't mind Vegas one. They're not my favorite line in that price range, but they're not the line I like the least. It's also the only line I would probably play from the Vegas side. I don't really have a lot of interest in those second and third lines. Howden and Carlson haven't played all that well together. Thomas Hurdle really hasn't been that great this season. So it's Vegas one or nothing for me. On the Vancouver side, like it would be that Miller line I would have the most interest in. They moved Miller to the top power play unit. They kicked Elias Pettersson off it last night. So Vancouver one is now perfectly correlated. Vegas's penalty kill has struggled at times this year, but they don't take a lot of penalties. 1.9 times shorthanded per game. I think over the last 31 days. Only Seattle is lower. So like if Vegas isn't taking a ton of penalties, Vancouver's gonna have to do it all at 5-on-5. I don't mind Vancouver 1. They're not a line that I'm going to be playing. I can say that pretty straightforward here tonight. They're not my favorite line in that price range. The Vancouver 1 and Vegas 1 are the two lines I would play. They're not my favorite lines in those in their respective price ranges. They're also not at the bottom of my list in those respective price ranges. They're about in the middle, but when you're in the middle in single entry, you're just not going to get into my lineup.
Yeah, I mean, like on the surface, I'd have interest in a Eichel Stone line. It's just like they're priced in a range where I just don't think I can get to them in single entry anyway, in GTA 5. Let's get to the main event of the evening. Colorado Avalanche with a 3.8 total heading into San Jose. The Sharks have a 2.6. I went to go look for Colorado lines. I cannot find them. In question was they moved Nichushkin up to the top line instead of Lehkonen in the last game. Haven't seen anything since. The good news is Nichushkin is $200 less than Lehkonen. That's an easy swap. Neither are on the top power play unit. McKinnon, Rantanen, and Lehkonen, as it stands, 24,500. 33.7% top two stack, 17.2% projected ownership. Now, Ross Colton is $1,000 more than Lehkonen. That would fully correlate the line. Casey Middlestat, I think, is cheaper. I was hoping they'd run special teams in their morning skate today, but they didn't. I think I would do some sort of power play stack if you don't want to use Lehkonen. Like, if it was Nichushkin on the top line, I'm completely fine with that as a top line. I'm not a big fan of Lehkonen on that line when he's not on the top power play unit. I think I would go Ross Colton if it is Lehkonen there. That would make them 25,500. Here's the thing, though. Like, I guess you could leave Lehkonen for this reason. And Cliffy was the one who told me, so I am giving him all the credit for this. When Winnipeg was in town a couple nights ago, they sent out the Barclay Goodrow line against the Sheffield line 80% of the time. If they're going to do that against the McKinnon line, I don't know how you fade Colorado here. It's an elite power play spot. McKinnon's been shooting more. I don't know. I do some sort of power play stack. You can leave Lehkonen if you want. You can add Colton. You can add Middlestat. You can add Nichushkin. Do what you need to do. Add McCarr. Get a little spicy. The goalies are Narrative Street City, though. If you do live on Narrative Street, it is Blackwood against Georgiev, just in reverse. This is a Colorado one game through and through for me. On the Sharks side, like, Blackwood has been good for Colorado. Like, this isn't, Georgiev or any of the other goalies that they had. Like, I would have some interest in Celebrini, Toffoli, Kovalenko at 12-9, just because they've been really, really good together. At that price, I think it's fine, even though Blackwood's in that. They're priced as a filler. They're kind of like that Kings second line, right? Kings second line are in a better matchup, but you get Celebrini, Toffoli on the top power play unit. That line has been good offensively. They do give it up a little bit defensively, but what Sharks line doesn't? So Colorado 1, Colorado power play, a little bit of Celebrini, Toffoli.
Yeah, for Colorado 1, like, I would, if you want to put Lehkonen in there, because like if it is Nichushkin on the top line, you can just swap down because Nichushkin's $200 cheaper. The thing is like a Rantanen, McKinnon, Nichushkin line would be perfectly correlated, and like, as you mentioned, like Barclay Goodrow's line is going to see a lot of that McKinnon line, and that is a matchup that favors the McKinnon line pretty heavily. McKinnon and Rantanen so far this season, 3 expected goals, 4 actual goals per 60 at 5-on-5. McKinnon has, I was looking earlier, his last 10 games, it's like 4.6 shots per game with 15 points. Rantanen's also been very productive. Nichushkin's priced at a point where he doesn't need a huge game to pay off. It's a great matchup at 5-on-5. The San Jose penalty kill is not that good. Now, Colorado's power play has been struggling at times this year. They're struggling with generating shots, which is kind of weird. But this is a pretty good power play matchup for them. I really do like Colorado here tonight. Like they are my favorite line on the board. They're just really expensive. That's the only thing is like, if you do play Colorado, you're going to have to play one of those sub 10K lines. You're not going to be able to play, Makar, Werenski, Quinn Hughes, like those expensive defensemen. So not going to say Colorado's a must play. No line is ever a must play on a given slate. I just think it's a really good 5-on-5 matchup. It's a good power play matchup. McKinnon and Rant, they get tons of ice time, obviously. Even with Nichushkin there, all three will probably be over 20 minutes. It's a really, really good spot for Colorado. It's just a matter of whether you want to pay up for them. The fact that they're even cheaper than Tampa Bay, I think kind of works in their favor. Like $1,000, still $1,000. Gets you from a straight punt defenseman to a decent, low end defenseman. So I really do like Colorado one. It's just whether you want to pay up for them. There are other expensive lines like Edmonton and New Jersey that I think are also in play if you don't want to. On the San Jose side, it is only that Celebrini line that I have interest in. 12,900. Nikolai Kovalenko is looking earlier. He already has 5 assists in 4 games. That's what playing on that line can do. Yeah, that's what playing on that line can do for you. Celebrini, Kovalenko in a small sample, 4 expected goals. Obviously, Celebrini and Toffoli have been pretty good together all season. Ice time is a bit of a concern, but that's also kind of priced in at 12,900. I don't mind Celebrini, Toffoli, and Kovalenko. They're fine as a filler. If you don't want to play like a super chalk Calgary or something like that, I think they're a decent pivot. But yeah, obviously, I really like Colorado one. Like I said, they're my favorite line on the board.
Yeah, I agree with you there. You throw in price, right? Yes, Colorado one is one for me, salary agnostic. You throw in price with ownership, I think Edmonton very sneakily comes into that conversation. But yeah, that's for you to decide. Let's talk a little bit about defensemen here. Top of the board, Makar, Werenski, Quinn Hughes, Bouchard, Hedman, Hamilton, Montour, and Weegar. Those are the guys 6K and up. I don't really like that range outside of Makar and Bouchard. I think Montour is fine. I just wish he played more than 20, 21 minutes. I know he played 25 last game, but generally he's around 20, 21, 22 minutes. Then you start going down, and even there, Brant Clark is so expensive, and he is on the top power play unit, but he's still only been playing 14, 15, 16 minutes. So I don't really like this top range here tonight outside of Makar or Bouchard.
Stochastic has Makar, Werenski, Hamilton, 1, 2, 3. I have them 1, 2, 3 as well on my list. If you don't want to pay all the way up over 8K for Makar, Werenski, I think Hamilton's perfectly fine. New Jersey is in arguably the best matchup on the board here tonight. If you want to argue San Jose, Colorado against San Jose, then fine. But if it's Colorado, San Jose, then number 2 is New Jersey. Columbus is not a good defensive team. They don't have a good penalty kill. Their goalie's terrible. This is a good matchup for Hamilton. If you want an expensive defenseman but don't want to pay all the way up for one of the top guys, I think Hamilton's the guy I would go down to. In the mid-price range, Darnell Nurse, I think, is fine. Thomas Chabot, I think, is fine. Charlie McAvoy, I think, is fine. The only one that stands out in that 4 to 6K range to me is Jake Wallman. Still power play 1, still getting good ice time, still shooting, still blocking. He's doing all the things that you want. Blackwood doesn't stand on his head. Wallman could have another good night. So he's the only guy in the mid-price range I really like. There are a bunch of guys in the lower end that I don't mind here tonight. Devin Taves, obviously. He's been playing 25 minutes a game recently. That's a lot of ice time, especially in that matchup. Ryan McDonough, I think, is perfectly fine as well. Connor Murphy has been getting good minutes for Chicago, and he can definitely block a lot of shots. Kevin Ball at 3K for Calgary. He's been, I think over their last 5 games, he's gotten more ice time than Mackenzie Weegar. on a per game basis. So I don't mind Ball at 3K. Noah Hannafin, I think, is fine for Vegas at his price. If you're going all the way down, like Luke Hughes, again, New Jersey's in a great matchup. Hughes has been getting more ice time, and that's important. The problem earlier in the season was he was playing 15, 16 minutes a game. That's not been the case lately. It's been closer to like 19, 20. Our boy Willsby, I guess Quick Party's boy Willsby, still fine at his price. Obviously, Brady Shea, still at his price with Roman Josi out. He's perfectly fine. Sam Malinsky from Colorado. Joel Edmondson has been the number 3 defenseman after Gavrikov and Mikey Anderson. He's getting like 21 minutes a game. I don't know why. Listen, ice time is ice time, and if you need a guy under 3K, he's definitely one of them. Also mention Jordan Osterley from Boston and Matt Grzelcyk from Pittsburgh.
Quick Party's family tree is an absolute scene. Like, it is wild, the people he likes. I will note for Dougie Hamilton, I know he's 6,500 in a great spot. 10 of his last 15 games have been under 20 minutes, and all of his last 3 have been under 18:30.
Yeah, he doesn't get a ton of ice time, but the thing with Hamilton is like he's literally one of the most efficient defensemen in the NHL. So like he's not a guy that needs 25 minutes to pay off 6,500. He can do it.
And the first few weeks of the season, he ran so bad with being involved in the goals. Like, he was on the ice for so many goals, but he wasn't involved. Like, that's changed. I just, just buyer beware. He is efficient, but 18 minutes isn't great. Let's talk about some goalies. Most expensive on the board, Mackenzie Blackwood. He actually has been really good for Colorado. I don't particularly love this top range. It's Blackwood, Jake Allen, Vasilevsky if he's starting. Hopefully it's Decord starting, Kemper, and Skinner. I think the 2 I would spend up for, if it is Decord, it would be Decord for me or Kemper. I don't mind Aiden Hill. Linus Ullmark has been hot. He has been excellent. He is the game log warrior play of the evening. Also, Calgary creates a lot of quantity, not a lot of quality, so I don't mind Linus Ullmark for 7,600. I think Kevin Lankinen's interesting at 7,500 if you need that extra $100 off of that. If you are spending down, like, it's not ideal, I think it would be Arvid Soderblom at 7,200 for me. Like, I don't really want to play Binnington against Tampa. Like, I'd have more interest in Binnington against Tampa, but Tampa's an efficient team, and I worry about shot volume. I don't really want to play Merzlikins or Georgiev, so I don't think I'd get below Soderblom at 7,200.
Yeah, the 3 at the top of my board are Aiden Hill, UC Saros, Joey Decord, assuming Decord starts. I'd probably put Hill and Saros ahead. It's like, I like Joey Decord. It's a good matchup, but an 8,200 goalie on the road is something that I just usually don't do. Like, I much prefer paying 7,800 for Saros at home. So Hill, Saros, Decord for me. Linus Ullmark, obviously, it's not a game log thing. It's the fact that, like you said, Calgary can generate shots, but not necessarily a lot of quality shots. So I think he's perfectly fine at 7,600. The cheap guy is Soderblom. I think, like, there's at 7,200. If you look at the cheap goalies, like, you're looking at Kolosov, Binnington. I'm not playing Binnington, not playing Kolosov, not playing Merzlikins, the Columbus goalie. So there's just, like, not a lot of options. It's kind of like Soderblom by default, but I genuinely think the lowest I would go on the board here tonight is Ullmark at 7,600.
Yep. Tell me the Lightning are winning today. Do you want me to, like, lie, or do you just want me to say the line? The Lightning are winning today. No, I think they're in a very, very winnable matchup here. I'm going to assume that's a bet question. I like the Lightning here. We will be back tomorrow, Saturday. I didn't forget about the hat trick pick today. Had a little bit of a brain cramp yesterday. Who you liking for your hat trick pick?
I'm going to go to arguably the best matchup on the board, but not the guy and not that guy either. I'm going to go with Ross Colton.
That was my guy.
That
was legitimately the guy I was going to say, Ross the boss.
That's what you get for asking me first instead of just going first.
That's no, that's my job. That's why Jake pays me the big bucks. He doesn't pay me at all. Alex Baker's signature comes on the check. We don't even get checks. I'm going to go Dmitry Voronkov.
All right, I like it. Let's go Columbus. Let's rate that ship.
Our Columbus Blue Jackets beating the piss out of the New Jersey Devils would make my night, although the Devils are in a really good spot. Devils suck. We will be back tomorrow. Good luck, everybody. Hopefully Capo Caco scores 7 goals, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Good luck tonight, everyone.